All right. Well, good morning. Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living Tahoe-Truckee Sunday morning gathering. And I'm Pam Brandman, the senior minister here at the center. And it's my joy to welcome you, whoever you are and wherever you are on your spiritual journey. You are in the right place and you are welcome here. We know that there are many paths to God, but they all end in oneness and in love. We're grateful that each of you is here with us today, whether you're here in the sanctuary, whether you're online, or whether you're watching this in the recording. But we like to remind everyone that our center's purpose is love. Our vision is embracing all and serving with love while awakening to the one. We start off with our receptivity statement. You'll see on the screen if you would read it along with me. I am here by divine appointment. Something I am about to hear applies to my life. I am open, receptive, and willing to explore the possibilities. So one of those possibilities this morning is our musician, Subra Doyle. And the last time Subra played for us on a Sunday, we were all still staying home while we were, staying safe from COVID and coming together on Zoom. And Subra was on Zoom as well. Since then, Subra has become the lead guitarist for a popular North Tahoe reggae band called Pipe Down. Right? And so this spring and summer, they have a whole bunch of gigs that are all lined up across Northern California. And so it's really pretty energetic. It's a definite party band. Good time. So we're really pleased to have him here and have him share his more spiritual side. They're all good, but spiritual side this morning. So welcome, Subra Doyle, as this morning's musician. I'd like to welcome our practitioner, Brenda Heldoorn. In the 2 weeks that Brenda is going to be the guest speaker for our Sunday morning gathering, when she'll give a presentation on preparing your sacred space. But for this morning, please help me welcome Brenda Heldoorn for today's special reading and invocation.
Thank you. And thank you, Subra. That was so beautiful. This morning's reading is in two parts. The first part is from Matthew chapter 12, verses 1 through 3, and verse 5 through 11. As they approached Jerusalem and came to Bethphage on the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go to the village ahead of you, and at once you will find a donkey tied there, with her colt by her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, say that the Lord needs them, and he will send them right away." The disciples went and did as Jesus had instructed them. They brought the donkey and the colt and placed their cloaks on them for Jesus to sit on. A very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, while others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. The crowds that went ahead of him and those that followed shouted, "Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest heaven!" When Jesus entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred and asked, "Who is this?" The crowds answered, "This is Jesus, the prophet from Nazareth in Galilee." And the second part is Susan Freeborn, Quaker minister who lived in Providence, Rhode Island from 1674 to 1723, before the Revolutionary War. When Jesus rode into Jerusalem on an ass, he knew that he was going to die on Friday. He did not flinch. He did not turn back. Jesus Christ knew that he was forever in the loving embrace of his divine origins. He surrendered his doubts and his fears, and so can we. Choose today to co-create your life with God. Choose today to live a life that is powered by love. The same fearless love that flowed through Jesus flows through you. Recognize it, claim it, spread it around. It multiplies upon contact. There is no shortage of good. There is a power in the universe greater than we are, and we can use it. So we join together this morning in community to recognize that good, that power, that love, the peace that passes understanding. And the source of all this is universal oneness. The one mind, the one life, the life that is God. That life is my life. That life is your life. It is perfect. It is now. Each one of us, as an individual expression, unique, perfect in our uniqueness, is one with that source of all that is. Therefore, in this understanding, we come together in this moment, in this place, to bring that presence forth into the world, to express that love, that beauty, the truth, that joy into the world, to bring it forth into being, to express it to everyone we meet, to all situations and circumstances. We bring forth this love, this peace, this joy. For that is who and what we are. We are the very being of the One. We are the very expression and the power expressing into the world. And so knowing this, our path is clear. Wherever we are and whoever we meet, we see the face of Christ. We recognize the one source, the one power, the one love, and we join with it, and it is expanded exponentially by our very recognition of it. And I am so grateful for this knowing, for this understanding, and the clarity of purpose. I accept it. I allow it to be. I release my word into the law, knowing that it has already been returned, fulfilled, and overflowing. And together we say, and so it is. And I'd like to welcome Subra back.
Thank you, that was beautiful. It's part of the show.
kind of instrument do you call that? A hang drum. Hang drum. Yeah, yeah, it's beautiful. So, in the topic today, we're talking about vulnerability, defining and aligning, and the theme for all of April for the CSLs is the power of vulnerability. And so we have a stereotypical idea of vulnerability, of being delicate and weak, but it's really very strong. And that music, as Subra was playing, it has that delicate quality, but it's a very strong, steady flow. It's like the flow of spirit when we're at peace, or someone who's doing Tai Chi. It's just very whole and the part of the expression of the universe. And when we talk about today, exploring this possibility, when we're cultivating authenticity, this is what we talked about in March, we want to discover and express who we are, who we've created to be, that our authentic self, and live our lives out loud, all right? But we also need that vulnerability, because that is the foundation for being able to be vulnerable, right? If we never express who we are, if we never risk putting our real selves out there, then it'll be a life not lived, perhaps, right? And so this week there's been a lot of things happening, but one of the things that happened was on Monday, when I was talking on the phone with one of the members of our center, and she told me that afternoon that our longtime member, Marty Mosier, had passed away at 8:35 that morning. And so Monday morning, March 24th. And, I felt like someone had just knocked the wind out of my sails. I was stopped dead in my tracks. My mind, my body, my emotions just came to a screeching halt. And, I completely forgot what we had been talking about. It took me several minutes to come back into the room, and there was still part of me that was there with Marty. Marty's passing, it just seemed to happen so suddenly. In January, was fortunate to spend a couple hours with her in her beautiful home. It's very much a Tahoe home up in Truckee, and we were sipping tea and eating cookies and by the fire, and looking out over her the snow. It was several feet by that time in her yard, up to the porch banister, and she lamented that I couldn't see her beautiful garden. She loved her garden. And so I said, well, I'll come back in the spring. I'll see it. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. And, Marty had mostly recovered from her stroke that she'd had last summer. And but now she had been in the hospital with COVID and pneumonia. And while she was there, she discovered that she also had pancreatic cancer. And so she took it in stride. Her Heather reports and that she was happy and grateful for the long life that she had lived fully. And she is someone that had lived her life out loud. She knew who her authentic self was, and she let you know who she was and what she was standing for. She was that kind of strong person. But she also didn't want to prolong her life, for 2 or 3 years max, and go through all that distress of the cancer treatment. And so she elected to come home on Friday, and came home with hospice care. And her 3 daughters, Heather, Max, and Jill, were all there to be with her. And 3 days later, she was gone. She was ready. She had made that vulnerable decision to spend the last days in her home with her family. Love and family were what mattered to her, right? So she did it her way. Now, I might have made a different choice, but her family and friends honored her because that was her decision. That's what she wanted to do. And so vulnerable and authenticity were shared all around, right? It goes both ways. When we love someone, be it a friend or a spouse or significant other or family member, we open our hearts to them. Authenticity and meaningful connection are born out of vulnerability, right? We risk sharing our authentic self with them, and also create a safe space for them to share their authentic self with us. Their vulnerable, imperfect, and wonderful self, just as they are and just as they are not, right? And so as we open our hearts to each other, we become one person who rejoices in each other's sorrows and grieves, rejoices in each other's successes and grieves each other's sorrows. So today is Palm Sunday. And Brenda read for you this description in what Christians commemorate as Palm Sunday from Matthew. And it's covered in all four of the Gospels in slightly different format. But this was supposed to be Jesus' triumphant entry into Jerusalem. You know, and as was the custom at the time, when you had a great person that you were honoring, they would cut the palm branches and place them on the ground in front of the person that they were honoring. And so they did this for Jesus. You know, that many of the people that were celebrating his arrival also believed that Jesus was coming to, it was the prophesied Savior that was going to overthrow the Russian government and, you know, take over the world and transform everything, right? Oh, yeah. It says Roman right here in the paper. Yeah. There's other things happening too. But Garrison Keillor, you know, he emceed the Prairie Home Companion for many years, the radio show, and he commented, Jesus rode into Jerusalem and was greeted with applause and palms. People thought he had come to overthrow the Romans, but no, he had come to change them, right? So as we remember Palm Sunday today, I would like you to think that Jesus was an amazing example of someone who was willing to be vulnerable in order to live life, his authentic life, and to serve his mission, right? As he entered Jerusalem, he knew that he would be betrayed, tried, and crucified within less than a week. You know, he did not have to go, but he was willing to be vulnerable, to fulfill the Old Testament prophecies, and to demonstrate that to humankind that our souls are immortal, right? He showed us the way. Now, another representative of Jesus' humility and his vulnerability is that he chose to ride into Jerusalem on a lowly donkey, not the horse of a warrior king, as many would have expected. But it's that same fearless love that flows through Jesus also flows through each and every one of us, if we choose to open up to that love. Jesus was willing to be vulnerable because he knew that he was forever in the loving embrace of his divine origins, as Susan Freeborn, the Quaker minister, said in the early 18th century. So this month we're going to be talking about the power of vulnerability all month. And so I would like to start this week with a definition of vulnerability, what it is, what it's not, and why it's important, right? So for Brene Brown, who's a professor of social work at the University of Houston, vulnerability is a central element of her research and teaching. In her recent audiobook, The Power of Vulnerability, Teachings and Authenticity, Connection and Courage, she observed, vulnerability is a state of emotional exposure that comes with a certain degree of uncertainty. It involves a person's willingness to accept the emotional risk that comes from being open and willing to be loved and love. You know, for many of us, including myself at times, we find ourselves inside of a protective shell that we've carefully built around ourselves, right? To protect ourselves from that scary world, whatever's out there that's scaring us at the time. And you know, yes, the big picture issues are all out there, right? Resolving conflicts between nations and ideologies, that's where the Russian part came in now. And protecting human rights and the environment. Protecting food and shelter for all people and all creatures on our planet, right? Dealing with climate change. But there are more immediate and personal threats, however, may involve the emotional risk of our sharing our authentic self and perhaps being rejected, ignored, misused, or abused. But there is that hope that we will be accepted and appreciated for who we are, because that is who we are. That is our highest expression to be here on the planet. And we need to create a space to lift up everyone in that same way. So, if we always stay inside of our protective shell, we risk never discovering, nurturing, and living our authentic life. We will live a small life instead of a great life, which is the intention. Right? You know, when we spend our lives being safe and not sticking out of that shell from the crowd, we risk not really living. You know, I'm really privileged to have known Marty Mosher, who lived her life authentically and vulnerably. We all were, as a part of her spiritual community. Reverend Ryan Alexander, who assembled much of the material for the CSL April talks on vulnerability, is the co-founder and co-director of the Soul Evolution Collaborative, an online Center for Spiritual Living teacher center. They focus on personal transformation and communal evolution together. Right? So before becoming a minister, Ryan completed an undergraduate degree in religion and philosophy with a minor in ethics, and as well as a master's degree and clinical license in social work. So big background to know all of this. And so Ryan brings both a spiritual and a psychological understanding to ministry and program development, and it really comes through in the themes that they've prepared for this month and for their whole center. They have a great website, right? But Reverend Ryan said, to be vulnerable is to explore the depths of ourselves and others, even when we are unsure of what we may uncover. It is stepping out, whether literally or metaphorically, often in the face of uncertainty and fear, for the purpose of fostering a fuller expression of ourselves and others. You know, there's some practical examples of vulnerability that can take us out of our comfort zone. There are things like taking chances that might lead to rejection, talking about mistakes you've made rather than hiding them, and having those secrets in the family, right? Feeling difficult emotions, or being honest about the boundaries and expectations with people in our lives. And we talked about that a few weeks ago. But vulnerability is not oversharing or dumping inappropriate amounts of emotions or personal history with just wild abandon. Just because we share all this stuff in our life doesn't mean that we're being authentic, right? It could mean that we're just looking for attention and sympathy, right? It could mean that the person that's speaking wants to just stay stuck in victimhood, and because of everything going on in their lives, it gives them makes them feel alive to feel all of that pain. But that's vulnerability is actually expressing ourselves for the purpose of sharing our authentic self with the world and creating connections with other people. So we have to release all of these things that are going on in our lives and acknowledge what they are. We don't want to, facts, whatever's going on in our life is going on at the moment. It doesn't need to be the spiritual truth. It doesn't need to be what is continuing to express. But we need to work through those things to release them and allow that authentic self to come forward. In fact, we even have to go inside and say, there's something inside me that really wants to write a great opera or a book or just spend the day watching the clouds go by instead of going to work today. Our authentic self is there waiting for us to listen to it and to express it. Now, another thing that vulnerability is not is letting other people take advantage of us and treating us like a doormat, right? Vulnerability is definitely not weakness. It takes courage to set and maintain boundaries with other people in our lives. And a few Sundays ago, we talked about how clarifying boundaries builds bridges for healthy relationships. If we're in relationship with someone and we never let them know what our boundaries are, when they've gone over the line, when they're not respecting us, they don't know. They don't know the rules of the game. So we have to, just like when we play Monopoly or Bridge or whatever game we're playing, we need to spell out the rules so everybody knows what the rules are and we can engage with each other on a fair playing field. The vulnerability is a conscious choice to express our thoughts, feelings, and desires in a way that nurtures authentic life. So, why is all of this important? Why do we spend so much time talking about it? Right? Well, vulnerability is not an easy task. It requires both self-expression and connecting with others. We have lots of societal norms that urge us to stay in silos with only people in that silo that are just like us and dismiss everyone else as those others. They're wrong. They might even be out to get us. They're different. I don't need to associate with them. I'll be most authentic when I just stay in my little silo. Well, you're going to miss a big part of the world if you do that, right? In fact, you might even miss your own self growing. It takes courage and love to remember that we all come from the same source, that we are all part of that one life that is God, the infinite and visible, and to live as if that's true. That is a big challenge in our world. You know, vulnerability is being willing to say, I don't have all the answers. I don't know how to handle this. This is new for me. It's uncharted territory, right? So we have to listen to the spirit within and engage with the people around us, right? Vulnerability is necessary to go beyond what we've already known, right? Stephen Russell puts it really well. He says, vulnerability is the only authentic state. Being vulnerable means being open for wounding, but also for pleasure. Being open to the wounds of life means being open to the bounty and the beauty. Right? If we never engage with other people, then we never have that beauty of a relationship when it is pure love. You know, we have one of our many dogs in our congregation here today, and so if you love dogs, you know that they're just basically pure love, right? And so that's why people love dogs so much, and they love us. That's what their modus operandi is, right? So as we begin exploring the power of vulnerability and coming out of our shells, right, we learn to create lives that are aligned with the spirit within us. It's our willingness to be vulnerable that empowers us to express our authentic self, a spirit's unique and worthy gift, through us and as us to the world. We learn to love and be loved. Again, Ryan Alexander, Reverend Ryan, suggests that we learn to create safe spaces, safe communities, and safe relationships in which vulnerability can thrive and grow. Okay. So through vulnerability, we have to creating such reciprocal spaces where both others and ourselves can risk sharing, right? Our authentic selves, and we can build those connections with spirit and all those people around us, right? One aspect of our human societies where being willing to be vulnerable and create connections with our human beings is it's important to heal all the lasting impacts of the COVID pandemic. You know, everyone was living in isolation with their families, some even by themselves, right? And a lot of the interaction that we've had just didn't happen, you know, and it's both for adults and for kids. You know, many people lost their social skills and to be with, understand, or even talk to people that were not like themselves, right? You don't even, you're scared you've got a mask on, so you don't even meet them in the grocery store, right? And our individual worlds have become so small that we've not encountered those other people, good people, that have different priorities, different cultures, and different life experiences than our own, right? Different needs. I think this particularly acute for this students that were in junior high and high school. You know, how many of you remember those 2 or 3 years that you were in junior high or as some of the best years of your lives? Any takers? There's one. Okay. The rest of us, not so much. Right? You know, how about some of the most difficult years of your life? Junior high. Yeah. So, young teenagers teenagers are just beginning to figure out who they are, to get glimpses of that authentic self. They've got all the society is telling them all these things they need to be. So nowadays, social media is telling you really need to look this way or talk this way, and if you're not, you're kind of ghosted. All those things that happen, and so standing out and being embarrassed or bullied is a very real fear, right? And so during the difficult time and into high school, these teens typically are learning and experimenting through trial and error with interacting with people, finding out. They're also discovering who they are, so they don't even know who they're sharing sometimes. They're trying out different masks that they'll put on, but it's a process of evolution. And, when you get to high school, hopefully, at least for me, it was a little better because I knew a little bit more about who I was. And as we mature into adults, there is that bringing out of our authentic self. But there's still all these societal expectations of what we should do. We get it from our parents, we get it from our schools, we get it from the social media, and how are you a good person in this planet? But there's also that voice within from spirit that is our true authentic self, that if we listen, will guide us on our own unique path. So as these kids go through the transition towards adulthood, they would discover who they are. They learn how to have friends and how not to have friends, right? And how to resolve differences with mutual respect with people that we disagree with or we don't understand, or something that's a new perspective we've never heard of before. How do we live and work together for betterment of a whole society, make the world a better place, as we say in Science of Mind? All of this requires being vulnerable. During the COVID pandemic, most students were at home. They weren't practicing and developing any of these skills. For adults, all of these skills had atrophied. Some of these kids even dropped out of school altogether, right? And so they're now catching up, and it takes a lot of things. And so, but not just the academics, but the social skills were not developed. And so, how did they relearn to resolve conflict? Well, they used the images that they had around them. They watched TV. They looked at social media. And what do you do there? Well, you get out a gun. You stand tough, and you say, I'm going to stay on this position, and, I'm going to stay here whether it's right or wrong, and because I'm strong, and, this is the way it is. I'm not going to budge because you won't respect me if I budge. Well, how well is that working? Rather than Stephen Covey suggests that we seek first to understand and then to be understood. And here people are digging in their heels and not even considering opinions other than their own and their own experience. Conflicts are resolved with violence, and anything ranging from emotional abuse, verbal abuse and attacks, to domestic violence and even gun violence and war. This has become how we resolve things, and we've lost the skills in many places about the gentle art of true negotiation, which involves listening and understanding and not just stating our own position, right? I heard an article on NPR yesterday. It was really made me pause. The commenter said that, our kids go up practicing not just for fire drills like we did as kids, and maybe we had the nuclear attack. We had to go out in the hall and duck as if that would help. But they also have drills for lockdowns, for non-fire evacuations, and for active shooters. In New Jersey, they passed a state law recently that required all schools every month to practice one fire drill and one safety security drill every month. Right? These kids, no wonder all the stress that they're under, thinking that, am I going to go home when I go to school today? Am I going to go home? Am I going to get to see my mom and dad again? I mean, that's an incredible amount of stress to put on kids. I mean, it's got to damage their brain development as they grow up. It's not safe to be vulnerable or let your guard down. And this necessary skill of vulnerability that we need to be together in the world, to be our authentic self, is really lacking. St. Patrick's Episcopal in Incline Village is trying to do something about it. They've been offering after-school tutoring to help the kids catch up with what's going on, and because of the restrictions that are now in place, because of the 2 mandated reporters that have to be in place at all times when you have children on your site, they decided they were only going to provide tutoring on Zoom. Right? Again, distance, not that personal touch and connection. And another reason that many religious and social organizations are struggling right now is that the adults, as well as kids, are no longer joiners. They don't have those skills. They've forgotten what it was like and how wonderful it is to be in a community. Adults work from home, they recreate in their small social bubbles, they want to be safe, they stay away from home with people like themselves, not associating with others. And so anytime we visit a new place, especially in person, we have to be willing to be vulnerable, to leave our familiar comfort zone, right? And so for our spiritual center, one of the things that we do best is to provide safe spaces for people to be vulnerable, to risk discovering and sharing their authentic self, and to create meaningful connections with other people. This is part of our purpose in being. This is one of the things that we do well here. Our classes, such as the Journey of Soul class, the Ho'oponopono workshop, and our Sunday gatherings have provided safe places for people to be together with new and old friends, right? And when people have ventured out and they've risked being vulnerable and trying something new or coming back to something that they kind of only vaguely remembered, we discover that, I really like being with other people. And people will stick around for 45 minutes in hospitality because they're so glad and grateful to see their friends and to get caught up. We're chatting away, and our lives become richer when we spend this time in community together. We're authentic and we're more meaningful lives. So as we bring all of these ideas together and we move through April, we're going to explore how our authenticity and meaningful connections are born out of vulnerability, right? Without vulnerability, we miss opportunities to move out of our comfort zone and into growth and connection. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is not about showing up and it is about showing up and being seen for who we are, even in the face of fear and potential shame. But that's how we move through it. As individuals and as a spiritual community, we are called to have the willingness and the courage to discover and strengthen our connection with Spirit, with our authentic self, and with each other. Vulnerability is our path forward. You see, it's the cracks in those protective shells that allow the light to shine in and to shine out. Let's take this to prayer. As we are here in this stillness, together in spiritual community, we feel the power and presence of the divine. We feel infinite love as it fills this space, surrounds us, heals us, flows into each and every nook and cranny, every dark space, and there is this gentle, nurturing, loving, holding us with all of our fears and with all of our hopes, holding us until we allow ourselves to open up, to break open that shell that we have had around us and allow that infinite spirit, that love that is within us, to flow out into the world and realize that this is truly who we really are. This is our authentic self. As we open up to be something greater than we had ever hoped we could be, we realize that it is Spirit that is expressing itself in, through, and as us in this moment. And as we look out into the world, as we reach out to those around us in this spiritual community, we find other voices, other arms ready to welcome us, other perspectives in that rainbow of all the people in the world. Each person special, each person unique, and each person an important part of the whole rainbow of life, of an important part of the divine expressing itself on this planet. And as we learn to live as our authentic self, as we learn to create safe spaces for ourselves and for others to discover and express their own authentic self, we find ways to work together, to make this world a better place, to respect and honor each other as we are, and to build healthy, happy relationships in all ways. We find a way to transform the world. We allow ourselves to be vulnerable. We allow ourselves to listen to Spirit within, and to listen to Spirit in the eyes and words from those around us. Not spoken in anger and hate, but from that calm stillness of that divine love. And we find that we can now understand how it all fits together. The Janushian logic of paradox, but it is the divine. And so we trust and let go and let God bring this into being, and know that we need not know every step of the way, but just the next one and the next. We have friends that are here with us, that we go on this journey together to create this world. And we do it with love and joy and laughter and peace in our hearts. And it is so good. I'm so grateful to know this, to experience it, to share it with the world, to share my authentic self with the world. And make it so for all other people as well. I'm grateful for this spiritual community that creates a safe space for people to be together, to discover themselves, and to celebrate each other. And so as I release these words, knowing that it is done, and even greater things, for Spirit always says yes, I know that it is done, and together we say, and so it is. All right. So I'd like to invite Subra for one more song.
Lovely. Thank you, Pam. That was beautiful. Well, I picked an old song from dates back to 1932 on the themes of vulnerability. It's an old blues song called "Nobody Knows You When You're Down and Out." Scrapper Blackwell's the author. Once I lived the life of a millionaire, spending my money and I not care, taking my friends out for a mighty good time, buying liquor, champagne and wine, and I got busted, I fell so low. Didn't have no money and no place to go. This is the truth without any doubt. Nobody knows me when I'm down. Nobody knows me when I'm down. The other day I asked a man for my rent. He told me all the money he has spent. I did my best to try one or two. That's everything a man can do. Nobody let me have one lousy dime. I cannot worry all the time. I tell you it's true without any doubt. Nobody knows you when you're down. Nobody knows you when you're down and out. Nobody knows you when you're down and out. In your pocket, not one penny. You look for friends. You don't have anywhere. Do you ever get back on your feet again? And then you'll meet your long lost friends. It's mighty strange, without any doubt. Nobody knows me when I'm down. Nobody knows me when I'm down and out.
And I think we want to change that. Yeah, until now, we know a place that you can go. So, well, and speaking of that, this is our prosperity time. And at CSL Tahoe-Truckee, we know that God is our infinite source for our center and for each of us as individuals, and when life goes up and down, Spirit has a plan to take care of us. And so it's right there in front of our face if we just knew where to look. So here we go. So, but if you've been inspired by today's service, please consider sharing your abundance with our spiritual community. Donations of your time, talent, and your treasure to our center support our vision of embracing all, serving with love, while awakening to the one. Yep, you're too fast, right? And so there's lots of ways to give. You can cash checks or an automatic debit from your checking account each month. You can go on our website and make a donation using PayPal or your credit card. And we now have a Venmo, so at CSL Tahoe-Truckee. So that works very well, and it's starting to work for us too. All right? So please hold your offering over your heart and repeat with me our prosperity affirmation. In everything I give thanks. I gratefully and joyfully share my offering, which flows from God, my infinite source. My gift blesses this center and all who are guided, healed, and empowered by its activities. All right. And so we do give thanks for these gifts that are so generously given, whether through the Ethernet or in this basket are coming in the mail. But we know that it is all God and it is all good. And we are so grateful for that generous support, which is always here with us. And we pass it on to the world in the form of ties to groups that support our spiritual alignment and beliefs. We share it in teaching. We share it in creating this safe space where people are welcome to join us, and we all thrive together. Thank you, Father, Mother, God, and so it is. Okay. So I want to, we have an offertory. Let's see. Maybe we'll just skip it today since we're running slow. So I want to welcome our friends that are visiting with us today, and Subra for coming back. So if you're a first-time visitor and you're here in the sanctuary, or if you're online, you can go to our website and sign up for our newsletter, and you'll be a part of it. Or you can add your information in the chat, and we'll get to know you that way. We have but I have some thank yous that I'd like to share. First, I want to thank Diane Metzer, who's our AV host. Thank you, Diana. Our practitioner today is Brenda Heldoorn, and musician Subra Doyle is here. And hospitality, Penny's got some goodies back there. She's back from vacation, so we're really glad to see her. And also Vera Dowling, a group of CSL Tahoe-Truckee members went to Sun Valley to visit her. It's her birthday on, next Friday. And so they went down for an early birthday celebration with her this week. So thank you to everyone for that. So in our announcements, though, so right after our gathering today, please stay for hospitality time. If you're online, you'll be able to stay and talk to each other on Zoom. But we have some refreshments, and you can spend some time chatting with our CSL family. Next Sunday, April 9th, is Easter Sunday. And so we'll continue the April CSL theme, the power of vulnerability. And I don't know, can you read that online? Okay, good. It's my angle. It's a little bit too sharp here. But my topic will be letting go and letting in. Right? The practitioner will be Nancy O'Neill, who will be back from her long Arizona vacation this week. And Kalina Kiko will be providing some special music in person so we can all sing along for Easter songs. All right? The Sunday after that, April 16th, is going to be a special Sunday when Brenda Heldoorn is going to be giving a talk about preparing your sacred space.
Thank you, Reverend Pam. So in Science of Mind, one of the spiritual practices that we engage in is the practice of meditation. And so everyone has been exposed to this idea of meditation, but making it a daily practice is something that is facilitated if you make space for it in your life, mentally, emotionally, but also physically. If you have space for meditation, it greatly enhances the practice thereof, and it encourages you to continue that practice on a daily basis. So I invite you to join me here 2 weeks from now, and we're going to talk about creating your own sacred space. Thanks.
Thank you, Brenda. And if you go on our website, you can find information about our spiritual center and all of our activities on the website. They're all there. And also we have video recordings of our Sunday service and meditations, the talks that are on our website and on the YouTube channel, so you can go back and listen again or share it with your friends or family. Another thing that's going on is we've started the Journey of the Soul class this last Tuesday. They're on Tuesdays from 6 to 8:30. It's a 6-week long class, so you have one more week to join if you haven't joined yet. And so the main theme is learning to see the sacred in our lives, everyday life, particularly the most challenging times. So remember that Reverend Dr. Patrick Harbula is going to join us for Class 4 and be facilitating that class. And he has also generously made an offer to give a complimentary Zoom coaching session to everyone who completes the class. So he's really generous with his time, and those of you that heard him last week, he's really an amazing person. So if you do decide to join, though, but let me know today. You want to get the workbook and try and get caught up on the homework before Tuesday's class, so you can get caught up. The cost is $195 for the class plus the textbook, but there are scholarships and time payments available if that's what you need. And the book is The Magic of the Soul. It's on Amazon. You can get it new or used, or on Audible or Kindle, whichever way you like to have your book collection. Now, we have a couple other things that are happening a few weeks from now. And I think April, everybody's got something because we're hoping that the snow will be melted. But Penny?
Good morning. The first event, as you can see with the slide, is it's sort of becoming a yearly outing for the center where we go to Ananda and we visit 19,000 tulips. And it's amazing. It's so beautiful. And the drive is beautiful on Highway 20. We're going to meet at church, April 17th. We're going to meet here at 10 o'clock and then we'll carpool. You have to get your tickets online, and we're going to stay at 12:30 as the vegetarian lunch. So if you go online, it's crystalhermitage.com because it's .org. Thank you, because it is down by the Crystal Hermitage where all the tulips are. So if you get your ticket online and pay for the lunch, it's $25. So it's just, I don't know, it's one of my favorite outings, and it's always nice to be at Ananda with all those lovely people. Let us know if you've signed up, if you have a ticket. We're just trying to figure out carpool. And so anyway, I hope you all join us. It's really fun. The next thing is Broadway concert by our own Donna Axton. And her concerts are just wonderful, fabulous, uplifting. This year she's doing Fiddler on the Roof, Wicked, and West Side Story. We've got tickets here that we're selling. They're $15 in advance or $20 at the door. And the two dates are Wednesday, April 19th and Sunday, April 23rd, and they're both at 7 p.m. So you can pick whichever night you want to go to. I highly recommend it. A lot of us go. Sometimes we even go out and make it like an event for the center and get dinner first over in Incline and then go to her concert. So it's really fun. Join us. We always have a good time.
So you can pick Wednesday or Sunday, and Thursday night for the women in the group, we have the Red Tent is meeting. It's the New Moon. Thursday night, April 20th from 6:30 to 8:30 at the Wellness Center in Kings Beach, and that's led by our own Jackie Price and Marika. So potluck dinner and ritual and sacred sharing. All right. Now another happening is on April 23rd. This is Sunday night, and so there's a virtual benefit concert called Rising Above the Rubble. And so wearing her Am I Worthy hat, Colleen Akiko is coordinating a virtual concert on that Sunday evening, April 23rd, to benefit and help the women earthquake survivors in northwest Syria to rebuild their lives, and via the global nonprofit Women for Women International. Colleen has assembled some of our favorite women musicians to perform, including Angelica Schaefer, Karen Drucker, and Emily Tesmer. So watch the newsletter for the forthcoming Zoom link. All right. We also have the SOAR retreat that's at Asilomar, August 8th through the 11th. The registration will be opening up soon, now that it's April, for that. And some years it usually sells out, so you're going to want to register early if you want to do that. And then we have our very own CSL annual retreat called Soul Sangha, Communing with Sacred Joy and Wisdom. It's scheduled at Ananda for September 8th through the 10th, and it'll be facilitated by Melissa and Z. The So the deposit to reserve your spot is $200 towards your retreat. I have the fees for if you're interested to find out how much it is. We have those figured out, and we'll have that up on the website to register this week. And so it's going to be a great time. So plan ahead to be there. All right, so we also have our ongoing classes that are on Zoom. You can drop in. So there's Tai Chi on Thursday, 3:30, or a meditation preceded by energization in the Paramhansa Yogananda style. And then on Friday, the Course of Love class, drop in at 6:30, which is a book study. All right. For our children that are here, or we're thinking about them, if you would repeat our affirmation with me. We see you, we hear you, we love you. You are a gift from God, and so it is. Okay. And if you would stand, before I do that, our practitioners. So if something's come up for you and you would like prayer, please see one of our practitioners after the service, and they would be glad to pray for you. So Brenda Heldoorn was our practitioner of the day. Michael Brandman is also here. I'm a practitioner. And then I don't know if Carol is online or not. Yeah, Carol's online. So if you need prayer, please do that, or you can make an appointment for a longer session if you've got something really big you'd like to work on in your life. It could be something positive too, not just a problem. All right. Okay, now, and so we would say our affirmation. I bring my own unique expression to life and create a safe space for others to do the same. And so it is. All right, thank you all. All right. Yeah, well done for you. I was really